Welcome to episode 97 of the Sports Geek Podcast. On this week's podcast, I chat with Rob Squillacioti from the FFA about his experience on our recent USA trip, comparing Major League Soccer with Australia's A-League.
Welcome to the Sports Geek Podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, currently crafting Facebook ads so your friends will find out about this podcast, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. And yes, I do love crafting a good Facebook ad. And actually, we'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff we've been doing with Facebook ads later in the podcast. You're listening to the Sports Geek Podcast, available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and my favourite podcast app, Pocket Casts. My name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek. You can find me on the internets at Sean Callanan on most platforms. And you can also find me the old-fashioned way by sending me an email. And nothing brightens my morning more than getting an email from a Sports Geek podcast listener. You can reach me by going Sean, S-C-A-N, at sportsgeekhq.com. On episode 95, we had Natalie Brown from the Melbourne Storm come on and talk about her trip to the US, joining me on the Sports Geek trip. So I thought I would also catch up with Rob Squillacioti from Football Federation Australia. He was previously been on the podcast, episode 66, talking about the A-League over here in Australia. So he came along on the trip too. So I wanted to get his insights both on his takeaways on our trip prior to SEAT, what he took away from SEAT, and also get his point of view on that cracking lightning story that Natalie told on episode 95. So without further ado, here is Rob Squillacioti from the FFA. Very happy to be up in Sydney. Done a recent workshop working with the guys at the FFA and the A-League. A very productive couple of days. I'm here with Rob Squillacioti from the FFA, former guest on the podcast and fellow travel companion of the recent US trip. Welcome back to the podcast, Rob.
Thank you, Sean. Good having you up in Sydney.
It's been as I said, been big productive couple of days in all things A-League, but not here to talk about that. Really wanted to touch base with you. Caught up with Natalie Brown from the Melbourne Storm recently on her takeaways from the trip. For those who have not listened, go back and listen to that one with Natalie. What was some of your takeaways from both the trip prior to SEAT, then SEAT itself? Initially,
Look, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me on our initial trip, I'll start with that, was the clubs that sit across the different leagues, the hockey, the ice hockey, the soccer or the football for me, and the basketball in particular, they all share similar challenges. And that was one thing that was a big eye opener to me to say, yes, the US market is 10, 11 times bigger than us. Yes, there's some one team towns, but essentially they're still having the same battles. They're still driving the same messages. They're still trying to drive digital through their business. And they're still having conversion battles. They're still finding relevance. There's some brands that are over 100 years old in that market that are still trying to find relevance. So for us, it's very relatable. We're on a journey to, discover more and more about our fans and deliver more, more of a digital accessibility to the A-League in particular. So that was very enlightening. The other thing for me was, and I'm traditionally not a brand marketer, but what I did see, and one of the biggest things that I took away was everyone knows who they are. Everyone knows what their brand represents, and they're somewhat cult-like. We've spoken about it. They really know who they are, and they drive that message, and as a result, they operate on a different level with their fans, and the importance of data is the third one. They're the big three for me. And how you use that data and how you don't be consumed by big data.
Yeah, I mean, the knowing the brand, that was one that was always in our, airport lobbies and Uber rides and stuff like that coming out was from the team itself internally and the players and the playing staff. That's pretty common. Like, these are the values and it's laid down by a coach, but then to have that so pervasive, so throughout, you know, whether it be the ticketing guys, the digital, the data guys, the concession staff at all levels, like this is who we are, you know, and meeting up with teams, you know, like the Kings in the NHL and seeing what their values are to the Timbers up in Portland, and Galaxy and things like that in LA. I guess what I wanted to sort of discuss with you is where you saw, because we were lucky enough to catch up with a couple of the MLS teams, Major League Soccer. We caught up with the Sounders, and the Timbers, and then went to a Galaxy game. What were some of the similarities? And, you know, being A-League, you know, for the people who are listening outside of Australia, A-League is the MLS in Australia, is a very good way of describing it. What were some of the similarities in the two leagues and the way that the clubs operate? Yeah,
one of the biggest similarities is we have a very similar customer. We have a very similar fan, younger, male, tech-savvy, affluent. I love the fact that, and we spent a lot of time looking at the MLS, and one of the biggest things was to see that they're probably 3, 4, 5 years ahead of us on the trajectory, but we're on that path as well. So that was good and very reaffirming for us. The second part in the comparison was, you know, and a lot of people would know about the big player signings that the MLS has. You know, we spent some time with New York City.
Yep.
With Pirlo, Lampard. You know, we were at the LA Galaxy game with Gerrard's debut.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the you know, thank you to Jane at New York City for getting us tickets, but we were at Yankee Stadium and Pirlo, Villa, and Kaká were all on the pitch. Yeah. And I believe it was the first time that 3 World Cup winners were on the pitch at the same time in an MLS game. So it was a historic match, and at a you know, historic venue to be going to a baseball stadium to watch football was phenomenal.
So I think they do a really good job of that. I think they've changed the designated player rule to allow more players under that banner, and the bigger clubs are taking advantage of that. We've probably got a bit to learn in that space. We've had marquees. Obviously, the Del Piero effect was phenomenal for us, and that was in a year where Ono, Heskey, Del Piero were all together. We feel like we've moved in a slightly different direction with players, and you know, the fans are probably seeing that with the recruitment this season. So it's now up to us. That's a difference. That's a difference in between the MLS and the A-League. So it's up to us now to hero build our guys, whereas they're dropping in the stars to their big markets.
And it's not everyone's going down that path either. So
That's right.
It is, you know, it is a big market thing. So we obviously went to the Galaxy game with Gerrard, and, you know, we saw New York City, but then, you know, meeting the guys more community based and around their team with Seattle and Portland, they're not really, you know, the big name guys aren't their strategy.
That's right. And that for me, that's the most relatable part, I guess, is the fact that the guys at Portland in particular, who were fantastic, a big thanks to, if you are listening, a big thanks to Chris and Brian and the team, and Corey as well, was the fact that they've identified their pocket. They know that their atmosphere is everything. They know that their product, off the field whilst in stadium, is everything to them as well. And they've done a lot to foster that. So, we've got a bit to take on board from that. We always try to fine line in that space. But, you know, football's biggest power in this country is atmosphere. It's the changing face of Australia. And for us, it's driving that really hard in the market.
So like I said, and as I explained with Natalie, we did a couple of days punishing meeting schedule, and then finally got to San Francisco for the seat, and it was your first seat experience. Knowing that, you know, I've been telling you for, you know, near on 4 years to say, hey Rob, you've got to go to the seat. Again, give us your point of view of what seat was like for you and some of the takeaways from the event.
Yeah. So, I'll answer that in the case of thinking about, I guess, you know, how would I describe it back to our business? And if I was in the situation where I had to sell that in, was the fact that it's a different level to what we experience in Australia. I love the fact that everyone is sharing everything. The topics ranged from, I guess, you know, as simple as social analytics and engagement to as complex as what's the next big data initiative, right? So it's a broad spectrum. There's some good keynotes, but for me, the roundtable discussions where you get you get into the nitty gritty and you understand the challenges that everyone has, were fantastic. I think the way it was, and it was a chock-a-block agenda for the 3 days, but there's a lot to be taken out of. And, I've probably got 20 or so relationships now that I can call upon, and vice versa. Those guys can call upon us.
And I think that was one, I guess, a surprising outcome, both from Natalie and yourself, that it was a level conversation.
Yeah, that's right.
That what you do in the A-League and what Natalie does from a membership point of view, and people who listen to the podcast know that I really pride what Australians do in the membership marketing space, and that's where I think the conversations are really good in that space. And then the other thing is the deep dive stuff where you are getting in, because you've got people at different levels of maturity, both from a digital point of view, from a data point of view, and from an IT point of view, that there is someone that's at your same level or just solved your problem.
That's right. I can remember back to a few conversations with a bunch. It was a group of us in a round table talking about CRM.
Yep.
And we're all at different levels. I think everyone in the sports industry, anyone listening in the sports industry in Australia will if you've come across CRM or that discussion, I think we would all define it differently.
Yep.
And that's the same over there. But one of the important things I took out of it was everyone was willing to share their experience in their frustrations, and the fact that those type of projects take longer than you think, and there's still a business sell to be had. Some of these guys are working for
it's not a once sell.
No,
it's
correct,
an always sell.
Correct. And they're talking to these guys are working for multi-billion-dollar venture capitalists who still want to know why it's happening and how it's working, and I think that's certainly one thing to add from coming out of SEAT was the business focus. So I think at times sport in Australia has too much sport focus, if that makes sense.
Yep.
The business focus is starkly different, and it's very high.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, it's important to have, for us, your football or your baseball or your NFL or your footy, as they'd call it over there. It's important to get that right, but the business is just as important.
Yeah, I like to describe that whole CRM component, Moneyball and the movie Moneyball and the whole analytics side of the game, which Billy Beane and the Oakland Athletics have made famous, obviously important for the winning and things like that. But more and more, and I'm seeing that industry grow with SEAT, the business Moneyball, like how you can get your data, how you can, see what that's valued at, how you can get results out of it. And those results might be, tickets, it might be merchandise, it might be membership or season ticket holders, depending on what you call them. It's like, that's the power. And then so people start seeing, this is why we are diving into this space. Yeah,
that's right. I think the other thing I had, I'd taken out of SEAT was the fact that you could easily discuss a challenge with anyone. And, I think it's full credit to SEAT and, yourself and those that have created the event, in the fact that it is straight off the bat, the first thing you hear is we are here to openly discuss everything. And I think that makes a big difference because, you don't get that often enough at conferences. And, it was certainly, I would recommend it to anyone to come along. And hopefully, we can get to Vegas next year, and do it all over again. The other part of, I guess, when we talk about, and I didn't spend enough time, I wish I could be in two rooms at once.
Yep.
I spent a lot of time on the CRM track, but the digital track was all about engage first, convert second. US market has a slight difference in the fact that these sporting organisations have sales teams that are selling individual and group tickets. We don't have that as much, or nowhere near as much. As a result, I think we're quite lazy in the way we market, in the sense that we'll put something out there and then wait for it to convert, rather than look at the data, see what's down. Yeah, exactly. And hustle is probably the right word. It's very American, right? They're all about the hustle.
Yep.
And they have to be all about the hustle because, they've got 10, 15, 20 sales guys and girls who need that. need that to drive their conversion and essentially get paid, right? So they've got the right model in place there. I know that there's some nuances to why, and they sort of draw on the collegiate market to get you through. But essentially, from as big as LA Kings to, I'm not going to say small, but to as different to Columbus Crew in the MLS.
Yep.
Everyone's experiencing the same or similar challenges in that space.
I think I probably already mentioned this. Maybe it was with my chat with Russell Squillacioti, but I think Paul Greenberg's panel with guys like Ray Wang and stuff like that. I thought the point of sport has massive brand and it has the brand size of a big company, but it has the resourcing and the people behind it of a medium sized company. And so that's where the disconnect, that's where the disconnect is. And so but it's also an opportunity.
That's exactly right. The other piece, I'm just looking at some notes here. The other piece was, it was really important for everyone that I spoke to in SEAT to make data actionable.
Yep.
And it wasn't about just looking at reams and reams of data. So it was ensuring that they know what they want, they know how to.
Explain that a little bit, like tease that out. So what do you mean? What was the premise of make data actionable? What were they looking to do?
Yeah, well, look, I think one of the examples was the Celtics, and funnily enough, I'm a big Celtics fan, so I'll put that on the record. But funnily enough, they had presented a piece on how they just brought in CRM.
Yep.
Right. Literally only just started a couple of years back. And for those that don't know, the Celtics were very successful over the last sort of 5 years or so. I'm not going to talk about where they are now, but, the fundamental point I'm trying to make here is they spoke about how the importance of looking at a particular channel, so looking at a particular social channel, I think it was Facebook or Instagram, and how that had resulted in an engagement and an eventual conversion.
Yep.
But they were more focused on the engagement. They wanted to know the content they're creating, is it working? And they've spent a lot of time and seems like a lot of the businesses now to get to a point where they're now set up to look at that almost dashboard centric. And, you've spoken about that with Russell. And a few others with the core platform and whatnot. I just think we're not, that's visionary for us, in particular in football. But even in Australian sport, I think we need to know more so that we can inform our commercial value.
Yep. So, one of the things and, the goal for me for the trip and for going to SEAT and getting more, Australians to see to give you ideas to inspire you, into action on certain things. What, not just takeaways, it was great discussions. What were the things you come back going, we're now going to look at doing more of these things like those guys?
I think one of the premises that we will look to do is work on the business, not in the business. So that's spending a lot more time. And, unfortunately, we all get dragged into the day-to-day. But one of the focuses for us is to work on the strategic imperatives. I know that sounds really simple, but it was a really important outtake of SEAT to say you need to think about where you're going to be 3, 4, 5 years' time, even 10 years' time, and you need to make that decision to say we're going to do that now. So that's part of what we're discussing internally. Another piece is that brand focus, knowing and living your brand. We've just spent the last 2 days speaking to all the Hyundai A-League clubs about how they need to know and live their brand and how important that is. Really, really important in football because our fans thrive authenticity, and authenticity is your brand.
Yep.
Right. So that will be a sharp focus for us over the next 12 months as well.
Well, look forward to working on that with you and achieving some of those goals. The last thing I want to do is Natalie did talk about your near-death experience. I'm quite surprised a lot of people at the FFA you haven't told the story. So
no, I haven't.
Natalie's already explained that you were sitting in the bus and the lightning bolt, but give the first person account.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely a near-death experience. I don't think we realised how close we were to what had happened until I I think we were quite shaken up, and we'd moved on to San Fran by that stage. So, Natalie and I had agreed to go to the airport together. We were around the corner from the airport, downstairs in the lobby, walked out to the shuttle. All was rosy, ready to go to get into the chaos of LAX.
Yep.
Sat in the bus, and all of a sudden, we were casually sort of talking, and we hear this huge crack, this huge sort of thunder. And I thought, geez, it must be a big storm coming. And looked to our left, and I could just see this puff of black smoke that had come out of the sort of the corner of my eye. Then we heard this sort of crackling, as if, when the trams of Melbourne, the trains of Sydney, sort of that electric crack. We heard that crackling, and then another big explosion, and looked to our right, the power pole that was within sort of 3 meters of us had just exploded and turned pitch black. So we quickly had realised that lightning had struck the power pole.
Yep.
We both sort of turned to each other in shock, and the first words that came out of my mouth and Ellie were, "I think we've got to get off this bus." So we ran inside the hotel staff.
Not forget, but Natalie did go back for the handbag.
She did, actually. I forgot about that. She did go back, yes. And ran inside, and within minutes, the fireys were there and the police were there, and we had realised that I think we were in too much of a rush to get out of there to realise what had happened. So Nat and I now share a bond. It's quite ironic that it was lightning that tried to strike the storm.
Yeah, considering, Natalie had spent the previous 3 days talking about the Lightning Rewards program.
Exactly. And she's a big Tampa Bay Lightning fan. So I'm blaming her for how close I got to that. But I'm glad we're okay. And when we got through seat, because I think that would have changed seat for a bit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I didn't tell you till afterwards, but I was worried about things happening in 3, so I brought you guys along as a buffer. So thank you for taking one for me, taking one for the team. Thank you very much for being on the podcast again and coming along to seat. So, people, where can people find you? What's your Twitter handle? Where can people find you on LinkedIn? You can find me on Twitter at Rob Squilla, which is ROBSQUILLA. And on LinkedIn, Rob Squillacioti.
Yep.
I will put the links in the show notes so people can, if you have not connected with Rob, please do. Please send him a tweet that you're listening to this episode. Mm-hmm. And if you have connected with him on at Seat, I'm sure you're in LinkedIn connection mode.
Yes.
Which is, one of the things you always, I always do post-conference.
Yep.
Nothing beats jet lag like following up with all the business cards you've got.
And I've got to say, for anyone listening, if you've got any questions around Seat, very happy to answer them. Fire them through on Twitter or LinkedIn, and happy to talk through it.
Thank you very much.
No problems. Thank you.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign up now.
Thanks again to Rob Squillacioti, or at Rob Squilla, SQUILLA on Twitter. Send him a tweet. Please send him a tweet and tell him that you listened to this episode, and keep an eye out for everything A-League in the season ahead at A-League on Twitter and on most of the channels. It's going to be a really exciting season for season 11. So that pretty much wraps up this episode. Episode question for today: are you personally, not your team, are you personally using Snapchat? If you are, don't send me a tweet, send me a snap. Sean Cullinan on Snapchat. Note, everybody, there's no ats in Snapchat. Don't go and tell someone we are at Sean Cullinan on Snapchat. We don't need the at. The at is dropped on Snapchat. Send us a snap. I would love to have some feedback for the podcast via Snapchat. Had a great interview with someone this week that's going for a future episode where we talked a lot about Snapchat. I'm sure you're going to love that as well. Been playing a lot with Facebook ads lately in the ticketing space and in selling tickets for events. One of the ad products that I'm going to start playing with more on my channels, but I'm also already doing it with clients, is the Facebook video view. Obviously, we know that Facebook is pushing really hard into the video space. If you didn't know, Facebook counts a view as 4 seconds, which isn't a long time, but that's what counts as a view. So if you're seeing really big view numbers, that's why. But from an advertising point of view, the real power is in the video views campaign. You can run a video views campaign to get your fans, your prospects, your ticket buyers to see a clip of video. Now, that clip of video might be highlights. It might be a promotional video for a specific game. It might be something for a ticketing campaign. It might be something for a membership and season ticket sales campaign. It doesn't matter what the video is. You can pay. It's a pay to play. You can pay for people to see it. But the beauty of it that I've been finding and playing around with a bit of Facebook work is the two audiences that it creates after building out that ad. It creates an audience of people who have viewed your ad, remembering viewed means watched 4 seconds of your ad. And then they also create another audience of people who watched your ad to completion. So obviously super avid, watched the whole video, really into what you're doing. And so we've been playing with that as a means to give out a warm lead, to really engage the fans, whether it's around a season launch, around a special campaign, or even something from a sponsor point of view. Real powerful to get the reach and get the numbers that potentially a sponsor might want or your ticketing guys might want. But then also you can start using those audiences to present the relevant offer. And so that's something that, really excites me, building out audiences, building out these pools of customers and fans that you can then target for a subsequent ad. Really powerful. Like I said, I've been using them with clients. I think I'm going to start doing a few more videos on the Sports Geek Facebook page, or maybe I'll do it on the Sean Callanan Facebook page. So you can go to those, facebook.com/sportsgeek or Sean Callanan Speaks, which is my business page from a Facebook point of view. So yeah, let me know. I'd love to hear what you're doing in that space, if you're using the video components for Facebook and using the ads component. If you're not and you want some help, you want to get your head around it, please give me a call or send me an email. Sean@sportsgeekhq.com will find me. Until next episode, as I just said, my name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek, and you've been listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.
Like the Sports Geek Podcast? Find us on facebook.com/sportsgeek. Check out which teams work with Sports Geek at sportsgeekhq.com/clients. Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes.